What the Tech is sponsored by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code WhatTheTech1. And by Carbonite Online Backup, automatic, continual, and unlimited backups for your computer. Try it for free at Carbonite.com and use offer code WhatTheTech and get 2 bonus months with purchase.
What's the tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech, the first episode for the new year. 2013 is here, and so am I, and I'm joined by Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul? Happy New Year.
I am well. Happy New Year to you as well.
How was your New Year's?
Oh, man, it was so long ago. I guess it was good. I was a little bit sick.
I was in bed by 12:20, and I didn't drink, so it wasn't that great for me.
Wow. I did drink.
You did?
But not as much as usual because again, a little sick. So that worked to my benefit.
Yeah, we took off for 3 weeks here at the network. So this is the first show that I've done in 3 weeks. We've had some other shows here and there, but this is really the first time I'm sitting in my studio, and I'm a little off. I mean, everything is a little shifted and everything is a little not in the place that it was. So we're trying to get back into the swing of things here. And a lot of stuff happened over Christmas. CES is happening as we speak right now, so we're going to touch on that a little bit today. We're going to talk about our predictions for 2013 when it comes to technology. We're going to talk about Apple, Microsoft, Google as well. And before we go into everything, I want to talk about Christmas and what we got for Christmas, because a lot of people have asked us over the break, what kind of gadgets did you get for Christmas?
Yeah.
And Paul's going to laugh at me, but I got a Nintendo Wii, a Wii U, which I was very excited for.
I hear that's it's a hit with the little girls.
It is a hit with the little girls and people named Andrew Zarian. So I'm in their exact demo. I have to tell you, Paul, I'm not a big gamer, and I used to be. I used to play video games all the time. I've had every title possible when I was a teenager. I played, and then something happened when I hit like 21. I think it was drinking, where I just totally stopped. Like I just stopped playing everything. So for me to pick up like a Call of Duty now is like insane.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about this. I mean, once you fall out of that, you can't really dive headfirst into like the latest Call of Duty because you're going to be totally lost. So for someone like me to play Mario Brothers is phenomenal.
Well, and I've not seen one or used one, but it seems like they're going slightly more mature in this release. So that's good.
Yeah, my wife got me the deluxe edition. So I spent all of Christmas morning downloading the 4.5 hour update that Nintendo demands you have to play this thing. And, this is to kind of bring this back to what we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about the relationship that Sony has with the end user, Microsoft has with the Xbox with the end user, and Nintendo. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a disconnect with the Japanese gaming manufacturers, like the console manufacturers, on how to present internet to their users, where Microsoft totally gets it and they're like, hey, listen, we have Xbox Live, the updates are like this is how you download a game. I don't know what's going on because Sony has the same problem, the same struggles that Nintendo has right now. Took me 3.5 hours to download the update, plus you had to do the update for every app, then every game had an update, and God forbid you want to download a game, because I downloaded the Batman game, and it was 20 gigs.
Okay, so it's not actually fair to say that Microsoft gets this, because anyone who has used an Xbox 360 will tell you that every single time you run any app, you have to update it. And obviously the games are also updated fairly regularly. So, I mean, this kind of stuff just happens. I mean, I guess there's two ways to look at it. I mean, one of them is that being internet connected means that it has the ability to update things and fix mistakes and all that. And that's a good thing. But yeah, my son also had that same Christmas morning experience where, in his case, he was trying to use one of those Sony PlayStation Vita machines, what are they called? PSP Vita.
Yeah, the Vita.
And same exact thing. It's just a crazy amount of updates. Lots of sitting around waiting, trying to figure out what the Sony account was, and it was just a kind of a miserable experience.
How long did it take him to? Well, you told me that it was like a
it was a couple hours, but it was because originally, see, I have a PlayStation Network account from years ago that I never use, and so I at first told him, just sign in with your, make your own account. Just make an account. And he said to me, this is like me being a parent too. He's like, should I lie about my age? And I said, no, just put in your age. And so he went through all this stuff. He set up an account, installed all the updates, and then he goes to play the game that it came bundled with, which is that Call of Duty game, the Black Ops game. And it said, you can't play this. You're not old enough. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I said, all right, screw it. I said, figure out how to restore the thing back to scratch, and I'll just figure out what my account is. So I hopped on my computer, futzed around with the Sony website until I found, my password information. He put that into the PS Vita, and then he had to apply all the updates again, and it took forever. And he finally got it up and running, and and he likes it. He goes back and he plays it still. But it was just, it's not what you're looking for on Christmas.
No, not at all. Because the first thing you want to do is open that thing up and start playing.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes that drive and that adrenaline out of you when you have to sit there for like 4 hours. Like, okay, is the update ready? No. Okay. I got to update a little bit more. So I went through that process. I like it a lot. The controller's pretty cool. The fact that I could either play on the controller, like Mario, you could play on the controller. So my wife was watching Netflix. I had the Wii running, U running, and I was playing it on the controller, and I could see it on the display. Really cool. But it's not like that on every game. That's the only game that you could currently do it. There's no titles for it except for the Zombie U game, which it gives me, I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable, the game. I don't know why.
What does the zombie game?
Yeah, too much thinking. I just feel very uncomfortable.
In a zombie game?
Yeah, like I got to run around, I got to kill zombies, and like they sneak up behind you. It's like too much. I don't want to deal with this. Wow. That's how I feel. I just want
to be a terrible person if the zombie apocalypse happens.
No, my wife has.
I'm really not in the mood for this.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I just don't want to deal with this, and I'm done. Just wake me up when it's over, or just eat me. I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm okay.
I'm all meat. Enjoy.
So I got that, and we were talking about before the show about some show notes. We wanted to discuss things that people got also.
Yeah.
And something that I noticed, and you had said to me, and a lot of people said to me, no, Andrew, you're wrong. It's not going to happen this way, but I had predicted that people are going to buy the iPad 2 for I guess, loved ones or friends, whoever's getting it, and they're not going to get the latest version of the iPad. They're not going to get the new iPad. And that is exactly what I saw this year. 3 relatives of mine got the iPad 2. They had no idea it wasn't the latest iPad. They're like, oh, I got an iPad. My father-in-law went to go buy my mother-in-law an iPad, and he had no idea he was buying an older iPad. He just went and bought it because it was a cheaper one. And it seems to be the trend. I think people just go into the store and they buy the cheapest one.
Well, the cheapest one is the iPad mini, though.
I guess, yeah.
Which also has the same resolution. I
don't know anybody that got that.
Yeah, I don't either, actually.
I don't know one person that got that.
Yeah,
I also noticed that people didn't get iPod Touches for people.
By the way, I have never seen one of those new iPod Touches in the wild. Not even once. And by the way, all this stuff is anecdotal, so it doesn't mean anything. But that is interesting. I think there's obviously the iPod not market share, but the iPod sales have been going down as smartphones have gone up, and that makes sense. And I think a lot of people have iPod Touches. Just kind of you hold on to it. It works for many years. It's fine. It plays the games and all that stuff. And why would you update? I'm sure they sold lots of them, but you just don't, it's not like the old days. You don't really see those things out in the wild so much anymore.
I guess not. Now that everybody just has an iPhone and they just put it on their iPhone. Normally, to me, the group that they're trying to target are like teenagers, like young teens that their parents don't want to give them an iPhone, so they give them this thing. And it's good enough because you could play all the games with it.
Yeah.
But I didn't see any of like my cousins and my friends and my like friends' kids getting one.
No. In fact, no, not at all. Oddly enough, over the holidays, one of my nieces had a Windows phone, which she hated. because of the app situation. And obviously, you would think a teenage girl has very specific app requirements, but other than that, it was all Android devices, and Android devices of varying ages. I was really kind of amazed by that. You see a lot of, Android 2X type devices with an almost old-fashioned UI. I grabbed one from a friend and was kind of playing around with it, and it was so simple. I actually thought like, this is kind of nice. Like, it's not all super modern whiz bangy. Like, it was just kind of utilitarian. I kind of liked it, but you don't really again, it's completely anecdotal. I don't think we shouldn't assume this means any sort of trend, but I find that kind of interesting.
What did you get? Did you get any tech stuff this year?
No, I got a couple of, some of the stuff we did that's sort of tech related. My wife and I were fans of Downton Abbey, so I bought her the DVDs for the most recent season from the UK because it aired there already. But then I found out actually there's a Christmas episode that wasn't on the DVD set because it aired on Christmas, so I actually downloaded that. So that show is appearing on PBS like right now, I think, but we've already watched the whole thing, so I can ruin the ending if you'd like. It's ridiculous.
Sure, go ahead.
No, I wouldn't do that to people, but I have to say, I mean, this show is obviously a soap opera, and I think it's reached the point of absurdity where it's actually kind of terrible now, but whatever. I didn't really receive any tech gifts myself, because why would you do that? But, we got like Amazon gift certificates. I got Microsoft points from somebody, which is kind of funny. No one's going to buy me a gadget.
Because you have everything, yeah.
It's just not going to happen to me. Yeah,
I got my wife that Lenovo that I showed on the air a couple of weeks ago. And she loves it. With Windows 8, she absolutely loves it, and she's only using the modern UI. She hasn't even bothered going into the desktop mode, which is mind-blowing.
Wait till she discovers how powerful that is.
I know. So she absolutely loves it because it's that whole app thing. She's used to apps and she likes that whole app experience. But the funny thing is, I fixed up a laptop for my dad, and I put Windows 8 on it. He hated it. He could not comprehend this whole thing. So I went down to Windows 7 for him.
I did some of that. I'd say I gave an older laptop to my father-in-law, and I asked him, I said, it came with Windows 7. I can put it back. It has Windows 8 on there now. And he said, no, I want Windows 8. That's fine. And he likes it just fine.
So I did that. I also got her an iPhone 5.
Mm-hmm. Who?
My wife.
Your wife, okay.
Yeah. I got her an iPhone 5, and I gave my mother-in-law a Roku. I bought her a Roku.
Yep.
And I got her Netflix. She didn't have Netflix, and she loves it. I put it in her bedroom. I mean, I gave everybody pretty much a tech gift this year.
Well, I used to do stuff like that. I used to do more of it. I mean, I bought my wife an espresso machine. I'm not sure if that qualifies as tech.
Is it that new one with the commercial?
What do you mean?
There's this espresso machine that's like everybody's buying this year.
Oh, I don't know. We're actually returning it. I love this machine. In fact, we both love the machine. It's one of those Starbucks machines.
Okay.
With the little capsules. And so we've had an espresso machine for many years, but the home swap we did last summer, those folks had one of the capsule machines, like an espresso machine, I think it was. The Starbucks machine is superior. It's really nice. It's like really nice. It's just that the coffee is terrible. And I thought it was I thought this was, they use like a standard, like a K-cup type pod. And I figured there would be all kinds of espresso to use on this, and there isn't. So Dunkin' Donuts sells coffee, but not espresso in this format. And Starbucks espresso is awful. And they actually have like a milk pod as well, which tastes like crap. It's really bad. And the machine itself is so wonderful, but the coffee is so terrible. So we're going to go back to a regular espresso. My wife's birthday is this month. And so I think we are going to return it. We, in fact, we just boxed it up, but we're going to probably buy a semi-expensive espresso machine and kind of split it between Christmas and a birthday. It's kind of a dual gift or whatever.
I'm trying to find the one that everybody got this year. It has Penelope Cruz in the commercial.
Oh, I
forgot the name of it. Everybody's getting it, and it's like this crazy, like, it looks like a Lamborghini, the thing. It's like insane. I'm sure it's like $3,000.
You have no idea who makes this, or
no idea. No idea. I've seen a commercial like 500 times, but I have no idea. I can't get past her accent.
Penelope Cruz.
Yeah, I just shut down after that. So we're going to get into some substance. We're going to talk about our predictions next. But before we get into that, I want to talk about a sponsor, and that's Audible.com. They're always with us, Paul. They love us at Audible. And we love Audible, too. Yeah. You're a big Audible fan. I absolutely love Audible. My wife uses Audible. And you could use Audible, too. If you go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew, you can sign up and get your free audiobook. Now, Paul, what have you been reading over the holiday, over the break? Because you always have these unbelievable picks.
So I'm actually going to sort of re-gift a pick, if you will.
Okay.
I don't remember how long ago I did this, but months ago I started reading this book that's just called, let me look it up. It's just called The Second World War by Anthony Beevor, who's an amazing historian who's written a lot about World War II. And this is the first book he's written that covers the complete path of World War II. I have no idea how long this thing would be in printed form, but the Audible version is almost 40 hours long, and it is amazing. And I don't see it today on Audible, but the last time I looked, I saw that Audible actually had split this into different parts, so you could buy little parts of the war.
Who's the author?
Anthony Beevor.
Yeah, I found it.
Beevor. So here's the thing. This book was so long. I've been reading it since probably September, and I've read other books in the meantime, but I keep going in and out of it. I had a hard time finishing it. It was just so long. I determined over the holidays that I would finish this before New Year's Day, which I did do. This is so messed up. But I wanted just to say two things about this. One was I actually bought another book by him, and I've been reading it since. And that book is called The Fall of Berlin, which unfortunately is not on Audible. It, as you would expect, just is focused on that one time period. So if you think about the part of the book of the Second World War that is The Fall of Berlin, it's like a little part of it. And this is a much expanded version of that. I'm kind of fascinated by that whole thing. But the other thing I wanted to mention about this book, which I discovered at the end, and I'm telling you, as much as I've read about World War II, I swear to you, I either never heard this or I just have dementia and I completely forgot it. But I learned that as the war in Europe was ending, Churchill had some people draft a plan called Operation Unthinkable, which was when we defeat Germany, we meaning the Allies, we will keep going east and then we will defeat the Soviet Union. He wanted to keep them in the war because the Soviet Union was obviously going to take over Poland, which was the reason the UK got into the war in the first place. And he was really determined not to let that happen, but was sort of powerless to make it happen. And he had these guys draw up these plans. And they came back and they basically said, look, best case scenario, we could actually push these guys all the way back. But this is a war that will never end. We will basically have to station millions of troops in Europe forever to prevent them from attacking Eastern Europe. You know, if you think about how Europe, the World War II ended, rather, you know, all these people died so that some nations in Europe could be freed, but others were subjugated by the Soviet Union. So it was kind of a lousy, outcome for a lot of people. I mean, we tend to think of it as like the greatest victory of all, mankind.
But it really wasn't. Yeah.
It really, I mean, we freed like Western Europe, but we also enslaved Eastern Europe, which is a book I want to read later as well, by the way. There's some interesting books about that time period. But the other thing, though, was that on the flip side, and I don't know the name of it, but Stalin had his guys drafting plans as well for the end of World War II. And his plan was, we're also not stopping. We are going to attack and take over France, Spain, Italy, and either Belgium or the Netherlands, I think, or maybe both. And by the way, totally would have been able to do it.
Yeah.
And the only reason
they were crippled at that point. I mean, by the end of the war, none of those countries had anything left.
Well, the United States, basically, they had all these meetings between the leaders of these countries. Obviously, there was the meetings in Yalta, there were the meetings in Quebec earlier, and so forth. And these guys had the United States basically said up front, look, we are leaving Europe as soon as this is over. We have no intention to stay here. And he was like, great, because I have every intention of staying here. So you please go home, and then I'll do what I'm going to do. And his plan, unlike the plan of the Allies, was in fact happening. It was not, let's see if we can do it. It was, we are doing this. That was how it was going to end. But then the United States triggered a nuclear bomb and used it on Japan. And he was like, all right, we're not doing that. Yeah. And so he stopped where they were. And it's very interesting. And I'm telling you, I had never heard of this, or I don't think I had. If I had somewhat forgotten it. So I was kind of fascinated by that. There's some very interesting stuff in this book.
Yeah, I was actually reading over the holiday about how technically before we dropped the bomb, the plan was that the war in Manchuria the Russians were gonna handle that part, and they were gonna invade Japan that way. And we were going to come in from the Pacific, and we were going to kind of meet and hit Japan, but we dropped the bomb, and that totally changed everything. And when Roosevelt died, that shifted everything too, because Truman dropped the bomb, and his relationship with the Soviets fell apart after that. So really, unbelievable stuff.
So part of that was that Stalin was going, like he did in Europe, was doing a land grab, and the only reason he wanted to attack Japan at that point was there was no Japan left, and he could just take what he wanted. And when the United States dropped a bomb on Japan, he sort of thought of it. He knew it was coming. He had spies, obviously, in the Manhattan Project and all that. But he thought of it as kind of a betrayal by the United States, because by ending the war before the Soviets could get there, although they were actually there, but they were potentially preventing him from getting more land, which is what he was really after.
It's amazing. You get
crazy
the book.
Stuff.
Yeah, it's unreal. I could talk about this all day. I say that every week too. audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. Get your free audiobook and download Paul's pick, and we're going to have it in our show notes at gfknetwork.com. We're going to have a link to unbelievable pick. I love the World War II stuff. It's so fascinating. I love it when, like, out of nowhere I'll learn something new. I'm like, no way, like this hidden gem that I didn't know about. So 2013 is here, Paul. And every year on the show, we do our predictions. And we kind of predict where certain companies are going to be headed, what products we're going to see, what products are going to fall apart. And we have a small list here. And also, we're going to touch on some CES stuff, too. So,
I
guys,
didn't even add to the list. I apologize.
No, I added some stuff. It's going to be, it's a very busy show today, guys. We've been off for so long. But I do want to do our predictions and I want the audience to participate, too, and let us know what they think about these companies and what kind of products and where certain things are headed. Of course, first on the list, I want to do Microsoft because 2012 was a fascinating year for Microsoft. They released these new products, a lot of shift in the direction we've seen with Windows 8 and Windows Phone. But where's 2013 going to take them? What changes are we going to see there? Paul, what are your predictions for this company in 2013?
So I think that there are two big areas. One is that a continuation of the launches that we saw from last year. So obviously last year we had Windows 8, Windows RT, Surface, Windows Server 2012. There were updates to Azure and so forth, but Windows Phone 8, of course. Next year, in fact, this month, we're going to see the launch of the new Surface, Surface Pro. We're going to see the launch of Office 2013, the new Office. And then later in the year, we're going to see a new Xbox. And so in some ways, just from a launch perspective, when 2013 is, if not as big as 2012, almost as big, and certainly a continuation of what came before. So that stuff I think is a big deal. But the big prediction I have about Microsoft for this year is that if you look at the way they restructured the company around this notion of devices and services, I think that is virtually tells the entire story of this company for the coming year. And so on the services end, it's very simple. It's the kind of serviceization, if you will, of everything that they do, which is already ongoing. And so even products like Office and Windows, which are traditional software that you install on a machine, are being delivered and serviced like a service, which is amazing. And so we're going to see ongoing updates to Office. We're going to see ongoing updates to Windows 8. And I think that's a big deal. And then on the devices side, I see Microsoft really expanding dramatically on the devices end. So right now, when you say devices and services, you're like, devices, what do they make? They have like an Xbox, they make one Surface. I think we're going to see multiple Surface devices, including a wide range of device types, actual like desktop computers, all-in-ones and Ultrabooks and, not just tablets, phones. I think they're going to get in. I think there's going to be a Surface
and
phone.
I can't think of one person that's not going to welcome that. I think this is what a lot of people have been asking for, and we're going to see it this year because for me, the most exciting part, other than the Xbox stuff, I think that's cool, is the fact that Microsoft is shifting the way that they do updates. And that's going to be interesting to see how they're going to update Windows 8 and how they're going to fix things that people don't like and how they're going to kind of...
I'm very interested for this year to go by. And it's an awful thing to say, but only because I'd say it's from sort of a work perspective. I want to see how they did on that note. I mean, because right now it's a lot of talk. We'll see. But there are going to be multiple Xbox devices, by the way, including potentially like an Xbox Surface, a gaming tablet of some kind. And so I think that stuff's going to be huge. And also Microsoft supporting non-Microsoft devices. I think part of the devices deal is that they're going back to their roots in some ways. And that when this year concludes, you're going to see an amazing wellspring of software and services from Microsoft delivered to other companies' devices, Android and iPad.
It's amazing how when they killed off the Zune brand, and they kind of replaced it with Surface, right? That's their brand now. That's their hardware brand. And it's a much better name to me.
Yeah, I like the Surface name, but it's funny. I feel like the first the first device certainly, and possibly the second, depending on how they do it, are compromised in ways that are unfortunate and were unnecessary. That hopefully by broadening this line out, that just simply won't matter. By the way, the other thing is I just got an email from Microsoft. They just announced that they've sold 60 million licenses for Windows 8 in 2.5 months. And so, 20 million since the last update, I would say roughly on par with Windows 7 sales. 1,700 devices have been certified for Windows 8 and Windows RT. So lots of non-Microsoft devices on the market. And then the App Store stuff, 10,000 new apps added to the store in the last month, and 100 million apps downloaded in 2 months.
I mean, so people are using it. I mean, it's not like it's the people were predicting, it's going to be dead on arrival. Nobody's going to want to use it. People are using it. Millions of people. Millions of people, tens of millions of people. It got off to a slow start, and I think we talked about all this stuff. It's been a while, but Microsoft blames the PC makers, which I think is certainly valid. Certainly, there's a deer in the headlamp effect that's occurring here with Windows 8 from their perspective, because they don't know which ones are going to sell and which types of devices are going to sell. I mean, if we look at Apple's history, could you have imagined Apple making these changes to their software and hardware and having all these specific hardwares that are needed, and they have X amount of OEMs that they deal with? I mean, it would have been the same. It would have been a disaster.
Apple doesn't know how to partner with other companies, but I think, well, it's always interesting to compare the two companies. I mean, Apple is obviously capable of great change, although they've done nothing but drive evolution now for the past several years. But the way that they make change is to make something different. They don't announce that, the Mac is now going to be something different, right? They'll make a transition, like we're going to go from this chipset, the PowerPC chipset, to the Intel chipset, but the Mac experience remains the same, that kind of thing. So it was a big technological achievement on the back end, but they kind of keep the user experience the same. When they want to do a new user experience, they go to a completely different kind of device. Again, time will tell the tale on who was right on this one. Maybe they're both right, but Microsoft's approach is very, very different than Apple's. And it's a little more respectful of the installed base, although a lot of those people obviously are freaking out right now because, Windows 8 is like a touch-based system that they don't understand why they're being forced to use it. But it's an interesting transition. It's a different way of doing it, certainly.
I think 2013 will kind of be the year for Microsoft where they put everything together. We're going to see the streamlined company that is Microsoft, where you're going to have the Surface, their tablet, their phone experience, their desktop experience, and possibly their living room experience with the Xbox will kind of fit the same mold.
Yep.
I think that'll be the year. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal year for them. I think they're going to do great with this. Some other companies that I just thought of, Google, for example, I don't know where they're going to be headed.
I just wrote a little editorial about Google because I'm kind of concerned about this because of what just happened with the FTC. Google just got an okay to bundle products.
Yeah.
And Google makes products that aren't just the web services that ruling came down on. They make software like Android. They make Chromebooks and Chrome OS and Chrome, the web browser. And they basically just got an okay to bundle, which is the exact opposite of what Microsoft got, 10, 12 years ago.
Is that amazing how a decade changes everything?
Yeah, it's very different. And it's the opposite, one would say. So, Microsoft never recovered from that. A lot of the bad stuff that happened to Microsoft over the past decade was because of its requirement to conform to these antitrust laws. Google not only doesn't have to worry about that, they literally have gotten an okay to go nuts. And so it's going to be interesting. I mean, on the device side, they can integrate things into the Android OS. They have, I think they bought like Quick Office, and so they're going to be able to do stuff on the Google Apps side that's very interesting. They're going to be able to start forcing stuff down people's throats. You already see it today with Google Plus, which is basically a requirement to do various things through their other services. And so, we're going to find out. Google will call it integration, I guess. And people who don't like it will call it product bundling, and we'll see. But I'm a little nervous about Google.
See, I think for Google, it's going to be the year where they close down a lot of these services that they offer.
Yeah.
And we've already seen them do that in the later part of 2012. They killed off a bunch of services, and they're going to be killing off even more services. Because I think now they're realizing this beta mentality where they just put everything out there. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, we're just going to let it sit there for the next 5 years. Like Google Health, for one example.
Yeah.
How many years did that thing exist that nobody used?
They do still do too much. I mean, this is a company that can probably look across their portfolio and say, look, here's the stuff that makes sense. They're always going to have this thing where 95% of what they do makes no money at all. And it's subsidized by the other 5%. You can look at that like Microsoft looks at Bing, though. It's an investment. It's part of, you don't make money on it explicitly. It's what gets people into your ecosystem. They don't ever have to make a cent on Android. If everyone's using Android and people are using their services on the phone and they're using web advertising, I mean, ultimately they win from that, right? They don't ever have to make a cent on it. So it's a dangerous company. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, it's scary to think that, they've gotten the blessing to kind of do what Microsoft was told not to do. And I think this is Google's reach is far more than what Microsoft's was 12 years ago because the internet wasn't as developed. We didn't have cloud services like we do now. We didn't have this connected global, whatever.
I wonder if we're going to see pushback from some of their partners. I wonder if we're going to see an Amazon smartphone this year, or if we're going to see Samsung use their influence to fork Android in the way that Amazon did already and kind of go down their own route,
Well, I mean, we saw this week, Ubuntu is showing off an operating system. Firefox is showing off an operating system. I mean, maybe that's going to happen where a lot of these partners that they have, like HTC and Samsung and whoever's going to say, you know what, we'll have a Google phone, but that's not going to be our bread and butter. We're going to also offer this.
Well, but today it is.
Today
obviously,
it is.
Their bread and butter. Yeah. I mean, arguably Samsung is Android.
It's all Android. Yeah.
They are the face of Android. I mean,
it's going to take another company to kind of step up and bring something in. But in a world where it's all about numbers and Google's dominating the phone market, I mean, because they have so many phones.
I guess the beauty of Android, which is a curious thing to say, is that anyone can do anything with it, right? So it's maybe there are too many of these things. Maybe the market does naturally consolidate around Google. Android is the Windows of the smartphone world, and other companies build value on top of that. They do what Amazon does with the Kindle. They do what Samsung could be doing with phones and with tablets. Microsoft could come in and just layer its services and products and brands on top of an Android phone if everything fell apart, and still have a very differentiated device that would offer on the back end some interesting compatibilities.
Yeah,
as well. There's no doubt that consolidation has to occur. So these kind of outliers like this Ubuntu thing or whatever, like the Firefox thing, which is crazy to me. I don't think these are ever going to be mainstream or have any serious chance in the market. In fact, I have no idea.
You don't think they'll survive at all?
No. This stuff is great.
I mean, I don't even know if they'll ever come to market. That's the whole thing. I mean,
if Microsoft and RIM can't survive in this market, those companies have no chance at all.
I can't imagine it, but people are excited about Ubuntu.
People?
People. Five people.
What are you, the Wall Street Journal?
People.
People? What do you mean? Cite a person. Tell me a person.
I want to continue the discussion. I want to continue the predictions, but I do want to go into a new sponsor. I want to talk about a new sponsor of the show, and you use their service, and that's Squarespace. I'm very excited to bring Squarespace on to What the Tech. Now, you have a Squarespace site set up for your next book, right? You're doing something interesting talk about it, because we haven't spoken about it for a while now. How are you doing this with Squarespace?
Well, I mean, I've had a Squarespace account for a while. I mean, the site itself is very basic, so I'm not sure it's a good demo.
No. The concept of what you're doing is actually really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, I've written books over the years. I've written probably 25 plus books. I'm not really even sure anymore, but I've always done them through traditional publishers. But as the world has changed, I don't really think that the traditional publishing model makes any sense anymore. There are some advantages to it. For example, you get paid in advance, which is very nice. But it doesn't give you the chance to update, information that's wrong, or as things change. I mean, software gets updated, and so the book's out of date, and I don't like that. And I've been begging my publishing company for years to do the right thing around that kind of stuff, and it's just the model is not any good, because when you ship books out to stores and you have a new version of the book, those books the old ones come back, and that's a loss, and no one wants the loss. And predicting the correct amount to make is very difficult and all that. It's very expensive, obviously making paper books. And so I decided I would experiment, and it's an ongoing experiment, certainly, with, new ways of publishing information that are book-like, if you will, or can be consumed as a book. And so the big one that I'm doing, and I wish I'd started with something small. It was a mistake to take on such a huge thing, but is Windows. I just call it Windows Phone Book for now, but it's basically just a very comprehensive book about Windows Phone 8. It's 1/5 done or something. I only have finished 4 or 5 chapters, but the idea is that I can publish as I'm writing. And so as I write chapters, when they're incomplete, I put them up on the web and people can download them, and they can provide me with feedback, and they can change the direction of the book potentially. And so I think, I think I've made a few mistakes doing it this way. The big one being that I took on this big topic. And so I have some other ideas about smaller books. Well, I'm going to do a smaller book about Xbox music, for example, very similar to this one. And Squarespace is just, if I were going to start over again and drop everything I was doing professionally and kind of start from scratch, I would go with Squarespace. I just love their CMS. I love the whole system. It works really well. I've really dumbed down my site, so it's not a great advertisement for what's possible on Squarespace, but they have mobile site. They do all that stuff automatically. It's really great.
Yeah, one thing that I love about them is that I'm building a Squarespace site for a friend of mine that's a photographer. He has no portfolio, nothing. He had one. He had some developer doing it, and the site is outdated. So I told him, listen, I'll do it for you with Squarespace. And the cool thing about it is that if you have an online portfolio, when you upload an image, it'll convert it depending on what type of platform you're viewing it on. So it'll create 7 different versions of that image for your site. So it'll load correctly on whatever device you're looking. If you're looking on an iPad, looking on an Android tablet, if you're looking on a 7-inch tablet, an 11-inch, it doesn't matter. It'll do the conversion for you. And I think something like that is phenomenal when you really don't want to do maintenance.
Yep.
And that's the great thing about it.
But who wants to do maintenance? I mean, in other words, it's like, the people who have blogs or want to publish information on the internet are usually not web experts, right? They don't want to code HTML. They just want to get information out. They want to do it in a way that's attractive and easy. And Squarespace is, as far as I'm concerned, is the best way to do that. So I use it and I love it. I mean,
and listen, if you want to do that, you can still do that with Squarespace if you want to do the hard coding and everything yourself, because they offer a developer feature also. So you could do all the nitty gritty changes that you want with them. Or you could do one of their, they have tons of templates that you could just pop in there and get your site up and running within a day or two. I mean, it's unbelievable how fast you can get a site up and running. And they're great enough to offer a great deal for our viewers. If you go to squarespace.com and you sign up, you can use offer code WhatTheTech1. That's WhatTheTech1 for your free trial. No credit card needed, nothing. And if you choose to sign up, you could get 10% off your entire purchase, your first purchase for the new account. It's great. I absolutely love them. I make Squarespace sites all the time for people, and super easy. Squarespace.com, offer code WhatTheTech, and get your free trial with Squarespace. I want to thank them for joining What the Tech and advertising with us. So we're going to continue this discussion about our predictions, and here's Paul's favorite company, Apple. I want to predict something about Apple. And it's not a prediction. It's more of they have to do this. I think this year they have to become this revolutionary company that they were known as. They have to change something, and I think we're seeing that with Johnny Ive doing the design for the software. But they've kind of gone into this trend, right? They're comfortable. They're selling the phones. It's easy to use. My wife has an iPhone. My dad, that has never used any kind of device like this, now has an iPhone, and it's super easy for him. I kind of understand why they've kind of fallen into this, but I feel like 2013 has to be the year that they make some major changes. I don't know if they're going to do it.
Well, actually, I think they are, but I think they're going to be on the software side.
You don't think it's going to be hardware?
I don't think it has to be hardware.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of nicely positioned. It's not hard to look at I don't know what they do with an iPad, but an iPad mini can get a Retina display, big deal. They may or may not make a mini version of the iPhone or a less expensive version of the iPhone. Those things are not big deals. But I've been saying for years now that the big issue with Apple is that its software is Fisher Price stupid. It's just ridiculous, and this kind of skeuomorphic stuff that they do that Steve Jobs loved for some reason, which, by the way, for a guy who was known for having really good design sense, it says a lot, unfortunately, about the guy, who didn't have any formal training.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? That he was this designer, and he
loved that stuff. We can't explain
it. It's awful.
I should say, just to be fair about this topic, Windows Phone in particular, now Windows 8, was designed with a formal design school training background. It is in a kind of a scholarly sense, good design. A lot of people look at Windows Phone and they don't like it. They think it's stark. They think it is too iconic and not graphical enough. And maybe there is a school of thought that suggests that this Steve Jobs skeuomorphic thing, made some sense. I don't know, but
I don't know, Paul. You really think people think that? Because when I pick up a Windows phone and I look at it and I hold it next to my Android, I go, "Wow, look how nice this looks compared to Android."
I love it. I'm just saying, I hear that from people. So, whatever. I think that I know that Johnny Ives is now looking at the software. Johnny Ives clearly has good design sense. He is the guy that has created all of these iconic Apple hardware products dating back to the mid 1990s, to the 20th century, the 20th anniversary Mac, for example. So he is looking at software now and software design and at these applications, at the operating system and everything. I've been saying for a while now that if Apple simply fixed the user experience of iOS, they don't have to change almost anything with the apps. I would love them to add a back button to this, but whatever. They could solve all of their problems very, very easily. And I think there's an excellent chance they're going to do that. That would be an amazing thing, because if the software in those devices was as well designed as the hardware, it would just be amazing. It would be amazing. Because right now there's always a caveat with the Apple stuff. It's the beautiful looking machine, I don't like the software. I think he's going to make a big difference.
And you don't like the software. You don't like the software across all platforms. You don't like OS X either.
No, there's nothing I like.
And I like OS X.
Don't like it.
I like it.
I never have. I understand the fascination. I look at a Mac product, like a MacBook Air or whatever, and it's like beautiful,
Yeah.
And you're in the software, and it's like,
It's interesting. I think they're going to change a lot of that for Apple. But what else can they possibly do? Now every product that they've predicted Apple's going to release is out, except for that Apple TV, which I don't want. I don't know. I think about it and I say, wow, it might be really cool that it's going to be a nice looking TV. It's going to have decent software.
There's a reason it's not out yet, because they don't know.
Because they don't even know.
Right? Because they have run up against the same things that we will think of, which is like, well, we could make a TV, or we could make this box that attaches to the back of the TV. I don't know. Everyone, seems to think like Apple always makes the right decisions. But, it's worth noting that when the iPad was coming up, Apple was making a netbook and Apple was making a tablet. And they made both. And they kind of talked about it. Which one are we going to do? Which one are we going to do? And, something eventually put the tablet over the top for them, and they did the tablet. But they were ready to make it. They were going to make a netbook. I mean, they throw things around, and so sometimes these things take time. And the Apple TV, I think we're going to see it. I had this sort of thought the other day. You mentioned a Roku box you got for somebody. Roku is really nice because it is silent and tiny and easy to use. But the one thing that the Roku doesn't do, and this is true of the Apple TV as well, and a lot of these other boxes, except for the Xbox 360, is that you're in it works like iOS. You're in isolated environments.
Yeah.
You got to go in and out. So you could be looking, if you want to find a movie on the Roku, you could say, I want to find this movie. I want to watch like Hudson Hawk or something. I wonder if it's on Netflix, And so you go into Netflix, you search for it, and you're like, it's not it. It may be there. It doesn't matter. But let's just pretend it's not there. All right, well, let's go out. We'll go see if Amazon has it, because I have an Amazon Prime account. I get that for free, too. In and out, in and out. It's the same. It's just like iOS, right?
And Google does a very good job at this, by the way, with Google TV.
Okay, that I don't know. So Apple on the Xbox, though, Microsoft does search, and it goes across all those apps. And that's the right way to do it. And so I think there's a kind of a combination of good hardware design plus good software design that can put some of this stuff over the top. And if they do the TV thing right, which would require them in some ways to either have a way more complete solution than they do today, or to partner with others, which we know they don't do well, it can work. I just don't think it's there yet. I think it's one of those things that takes time.
The only thing I fear about this Google TV is that it seems like Tim Cook, Steve Jobs was the type where I know what they want and that's what I'm going to give them. And Tim Cook actually is kind of catering towards, okay, listen, this is the business and we have to have a 7-inch tablet. We have to. Everybody else is doing it. We have to do it. I kind of feel like they're going to be stuck into making this device, this Apple TV, and it's going to do awful because nobody's going to go and buy it, but they're doing it to cater to their audience.
Right.
I mean, that's what I feel about this, because I don't know one person right now. I mean, we like the idea. Okay, well, they're going to make a TV. But who's going to go and buy a TV, and how often do you go and buy a TV?
Yeah.
It's not an every year thing. When you buy a TV, you hang on to it until the thing dies, and you go and buy a new one.
Well, see, this is the other problem they face. And actually, we kind of touched on this with the tech gift bit. Apple, it's funny, by introducing new products, new product types, right? They have a product that Apple goons could buy like every year. Like these little guys like can't wait for the next Apple event. They go buy whatever it is. They don't care. And if you have enough of them, you can get them on a rotation where it's like, this year I'm going to buy a new iPad and a new iPhone, and next year I'm going to buy a new Mac and a new whatever, and then a new Apple TV, and now there's and you get on this kind of cycle. The problem is like some of the stuff that they had people buying repeatedly is falling off the other side of the earth, and so the MP3 players, the iPods are like that now. They're not selling as well. Macs I think have hit some kind of logical ceiling. I don't think those things are going to ever take over 20% of the market or anything. I think they're kind of where they are, and they need something new to kind of make up the space. And this is the kind of the dark underbelly of Apple's strategy, which, by the way, has been incredibly successful. But it's the repeat buyer thing. Like at some point, there's just fatigue. Not to mention the fact that your credit card finally fills up, I guess.
I think that helps too.
I don't know. Yeah, I have to think it's going to happen. These people are not all paying for the stuff with cash.
I don't think any of them are. Not in this economy. I don't think anybody's paying with cash. No, I think it's going to be an interesting year for Apple too. Who comes to mind? What else do you see changing in 2013? I mean, CES is happening right now, and it's the same exact thing like every year. I'm not blown up. And I think this year, more than other CESs for me, has kind of been like, oh God, how many TVs are we going to see?
Well, they're pushing those, ultra high definition TVs,
4K.
Obviously. Yeah.
Because I told you, 3D TVs, nobody cares about them anymore. And now this is the thing. But we're talking about ultra high def, but nothing, 20% of your channels are in high def now? So
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, it's not all of them.
I occasionally catch my daughter watching standard definition shows, and I always say to her, if you add like 400 to the the channel number, you're going to find an HD version of that or whatever. But actually, in some cases, there isn't an HD version. I was kind of surprised by that.
History 2 doesn't have an HD version.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, a lot of these channels don't, but with CES, I'm it's CES fatigue, Brian Monroe in our chat room says. And yeah, this year I'm feeling it.
Which is why I'm not there, by the way. CES is too much. It's the wrong time of the year, too. It's stupid to have CES now.
It's a bad time. And and I was thinking the other day, if I'm a company and I'm releasing something, right?
Yeah.
CES is the worst place to release your product. It gets totally, just
right.
crapped
Snowed
over
under.
by everything else that's being released at the same time. Like Sharp releases a 32-inch 4K TV. Okay. ZTE Grand S unveils a new smartphone. I'm just on Engadget. I'm just looking down the list. There's nothing that stands out.
Oh, it's just, I can't. This is like, CES is like this unbelievable tech blogger circle jerk thing. It's like, we're going to make a post about every piece of crap that we see on the CS blog, show floor. That you could make 3,000 posts in a day. There's so much crap there. It's just a complete waste of time. And finding the nuggets in there is difficult. Obviously, these people could do a service by only focusing on those things that are good, but they don't. And the other problem is, a lot of this stuff is not. Most of this stuff is not coming. It's not like it's coming out 2 weeks from now. I mean, a lot of it's coming out in the fall,
and a lot of it won't ever come out.
Yeah,
that's also a problem. Where a couple of years ago, I remember that Lenovo was pretty good. The Yoga was unveiled, and then Lenovo had that U1 or whatever they were calling it, the tablet. Yep. That was a pretty cool idea. Like every year, there were some pretty cool things. I haven't seen that this year.
Yeah, I just don't. CES makes no sense to me. I just haven't. Zero interest.
Oh, look at this. Netflix launches Super HD and 3D streaming.
Right.
That's okay. But
I might be
through certain ISPs.
By the way, I might literally be killing my Netflix DVD subscription like today, as soon as today.
Super HD.
I need Super HD.
And 3D streaming. So, it gets a little tired, but...
but you see what they're doing, right? This is like, Netflix has the same problem as Apple. They have a couple of services. How do you add on to this?
What do you do?
How do you charge the same people for other stuff?
You got to constantly, reinvent yourself in this market now.
And this is not. It's not like ultra, HD streaming is, just part of your plan. Like this is a different plan. It's the only way to do it.
I mean, I was reading on. I was just on the site and I was reading about it, and they were showing how they were saying, this is the year for Google TV. This is the year.
Yep.
And do you know what the reason was for it being a year for Google TV? Asus was releasing a little cube with Google TV. That was it.
Okay.
I mean, that's the reason why. And I'm thinking, I'm like, why? Why that? Out of all the things that they've done, why is this the reason?
Generally speaking, obviously Google TV has been a disappointment so far, but for the same reason that Android has taken off in the smartphone market, you could almost see them making a play for this. It's just going to require, I don't know, the media industry, I'm not sure what to call it, to fall into lockstep with them.
I mean,
eventually these guys are going to have to partner with somebody.
That's what I was going to say. For any of these, and the same applies for Roku and Google TV and Microsoft and Apple, whoever. They need to partner with somebody, and they need to partner with a lot of people. Yeah. I think partnering with the cable companies, that's the only hope. If you get them on the cable boxes, then that's great. You have them run the UI, because we all know, the cable companies don't know anything about that.
I have no idea what they're doing.
So I want to get into CS a little bit. I want to talk about this a little bit, but before we do, before we wrap up, we have one last sponsor. It's a busy show today, Paul. Right. And that's Carbonite Online Backup. Now, we talk about cloud backing up and cloud storage and everything about the cloud, and it seems to be one of our most controversial topics, but no one could disagree that having your stuff backed up somewhere totally different than your house and on the cloud is the best way to save your documents. My wife rarely backs up, and I've kind of gotten her used to this, and I use Carbonite on her laptop to make sure, if you lose it, it's fine. It's somewhere else. Before we used to, what would we do? We put it on a CD, we put it on a flash drive, but the flash drives break. The CDs get bad after a couple of years. and you end up worrying about it. But with Carbonite, there's no worry, no hassle, nothing. Backs it up automatically and continually, so it's constantly backing up for you. And I believe they start off at about $59 for a home user a year, which is virtually nothing, Paul.
Yeah,
I mean, you're spending $59 to back up your stuff. It's great. Anything could possibly happen. And Carbonite is offering a free trial. You could try Carbonite for free and use offer code, I should say, What the Tech, and you get 2 bonus months when you do sign up for the service, which is great because now you're getting 14 months of service instead of 12 months. Now, Paul, you were saying you want to try out Carbonite.
I do.
I actually got it for my wife, and it's excellent. You install it, and that's it. You don't worry about it. It does everything on its own.
How fast is the initial backup? See, that's the thing.
Well, it depends how big it is, and because if you have 1,000, if you have a terabyte of data on your hard drive, it's going to take a little longer. But after that initial backup, it's just constantly doing it.
My initial backup from my home server took way longer than it should have. And I install, this is on CrashPlan, sorry, not Carbonite, which is why I'm asking about this. And I set up a Windows 8 PC as sort of like a pseudo home server. And I put CrashPlan on there. And man, this thing is still it's like 30% done or something, 40%.
No, I mean, I backed up.
It's going to take weeks. It's going to take more than 2 weeks more. And it's like 300 gigabytes of stuff. Like, what's going on?
I backed up her Lenovo right before. It's funny. I signed up right before they came on board as an advertiser, and it took a couple hours. I mean, she doesn't have too much stuff on there. It's all pictures and Word files.
Yeah,
really that are important because once you lose that, you lose that. But it was pretty quick, and she doesn't even know it's there. Like, she has no concept that it's doing it on its own.
I think I'm just going to Carbonite on the PC.
Yeah, it's excellent. You could try it out for free. What the Tech is the offer code. Sign up, and if you do sign up after the free trial, you get 2 bonus months. And I want to thank Carbonite for joining What the Tech and sponsoring us. So, Paul, I'm going to go through some of the stuff at CES. A lot of 4K TVs. Do you think this year we're going to see them, legitimately come to market? I mean, they're all saying they're coming to market, but I don't think so.
I look at, SD to HD to 4K, you could make the argument is conceptually similar to VHS to DVD to Blu-ray. I realize they don't equate to each other, but in the sense that I do think that as we go to ever bigger screens, that higher resolutions make sense. No, Blu-ray is not 4K. I'm
1080p.
Just saying conceptually. So I do think that 4K has a future. The thing I don't quite get is the 3D stuff, because there are so many different types of 3D that requires glasses, 3D that doesn't, different formats for it and so forth. And so I kind of wish that stuff would standardize, and it's gonna take some number of years to come into the market. But this is this is the TV business's version of selling you the same thing over and over again, right? I mean, it's half of the reason we go from format to format is so that you can buy the same content again, you can buy the same type of device again. It's just better in some ways.
But I think in a way, and you kind of walk me through this. I mean, in the 80s, we had, projector TVs were coming out. It was just bigger and better, and everything looked bad. You came into the early 90s, and then we started doing these weird comb filter TVs, right?
Yeah.
That was the next step. But there was a big gap. Standard definition was standardized for a long time before we went to high def. And that took many years. I mean, when we went to high def, we're talking early 2000s, and now over the last 5 years, we're seeing this huge transition to everybody buying flat screen TVs and hanging it up on their walls. So it took a while. Sure. I don't know if it's enough of a jump for people. And when you look at a high def picture and you look at a standard picture, everybody looks and says, wow, look how much better this is. Are we going to have that same reaction when we go from 1080p to 4K?
I think it's going to require bigger sets.
You think so?
Well, I don't think 4000K, this is like the Retina display thing. I mean, obviously, a Retina display, you really notice it for certain things, text is an obvious one. I think a 4K display, if you had like a 46-inch, 42-inch TV on your wall and you're sitting 6 to 8 feet away from it, I don't think you're going to notice a difference at all. I think it requires a ginormous display because, you know, obviously a very big display at 1080p is suddenly not so impressive, you know, and you start to see the pixelization and so forth. And so I really think this is all about size. And that, you know, this is a step on the way to, you know, your wall is the display.
I guess, but I mean, but there is a certain thing is it's a little too big because they say like you have it's like depending on where your seating is and how big the room is, that's how big your TV should be.
Yep.
Like if you have the small, you know, living room, you shouldn't have a 70-inch flat screen on your wall. You're not going to get a great experience with that. So I don't know if it's going to sell.
Well, but that doesn't mean it takes over the entire market, right? I mean, HD will still be around.
H is going to be around for a long time, but I don't know how important this is this year. I think the biggest story out of CES for me is Intel's announcement.
Wow.
And
you're very PC centric. I
am very PC centric because I think this is a huge step, and I think this is going to be great for Windows 8.
Yeah, I do too.
They announced thinner, faster, lighter computers because of their new chipset. They also said the concept behind some of these new chips is that you're going to leave your charger at home. You're not going to need it. It's going to be much better battery life with their new chips for all across the board.
Yep.
I'm trying. I can't remember the names now. I'm an idiot.
Well, I mean, off the top of my head. So there's the one that's out now is an up. Well, I mean, one of the ones they just announced is an Ivy Bridge based chipset that runs with as little as 7 watts of power, right? And this is going to enable. I hate to call it the second generation Windows 8 devices, but I'm not sure how else to say it. The true first generation of Windows 8 devices that will be coming in the next 6 to 8 weeks. One of the rare CES announcements that's going to result in like new devices like immediately. And so, you know, I think if people are thinking about buying a Windows 8 device, they need to wait until they see what comes out of that. And so that stuff's happening very quickly. But then in the second half of the year, there's going to be an update to the Clover Trail Atom chipset, who's, if there's a name for that, I can't remember what it is, but it's basically like a second generation Atom SoC chipset, you know, multipliers on the performance, you know, the same battery life and so forth. And then the thing that we're all kind of waiting for, I believe, which is Haswell, right, which is the follow-up to Ivy Bridge and the 4th generation core processor, which will offer, you know, all the power management stuff you get with Clover Trail today, you know, connected standby and so forth, you know, massive battery life, very small form factor, et cetera, et cetera. So
I believe they said with Haswell that they're going to be getting 13 hours of battery life on these, you know, Ultrabooks, which is
kind of where
these
things, it's where they need to be, you know.
I mean, this is going to be their year.
Yeah, 13. If 13 hours is real, that's potentially like 2 days in a row.
Yeah,
you know, depending on how you work. And so, yeah, I think this is going to be a big year for this stuff. And it's too bad this stuff couldn't have been aligned better, because Windows 8 plus this stuff
would have been great,
huge. Yeah, Windows 8 running on the previous gen, you know, it's okay. It's okay. But I think this might have played a role in the PC makers who are like, I don't know. You know, you hate to put out a beautiful looking tablet that's a little too thick or whatever because you don't have that 7-watt part, but you got to sell something right now. And, you know, I think, and you don't want to get in, you know, people framed up for the idea that this stuff isn't any good.
Yeah.
And well, I bet that was part of it.
This is going to be the year that they really enter the phone market, and that they've been totally absent from. Totally absent from the phone market.
I don't know how I feel about that, but I guess we'll see how that goes.
I believe it's going to be an Atom-based processor that's going to be a quad-core chip, and they're saying the battery life is going to be unbelievable. There's no need to bring your charger with you. This thing is going to last all day. And if it's true, I think that's great. But if I think about it this way, what have they figured out that, you know, the ARM-based chipsets have not?
Well, so the advantage of ARM always has been that system on a chip thing, right? They've got connected standby, that amazing power profile, great battery life, and so forth. The problem with ARM has always been compatibility, with, at least on the Windows side. And and performance on the Windows side. But when you talk about like a phone or a Android or iPad type OS that was designed for that kind of form factor, that stuff is actually not an issue. This is just a very Windows specific issue because Windows has decades of experience running on Intel hardware, and it's Intel hardware has evolved the way it has. It's just a different kind of beast, and so I think as Windows evolves and as these chipsets evolve, those things are all going to get better on ARM and on Intel. But the way life is right now is you have a fairly compromised experience if you're running Windows on ARM.
What is this going to do for Windows on ARM? I mean, really, why would you buy a RT if you could get everything plus more with one of these new Intel chipsets? I
don't recommend it, but I still hear from people. It amazes me. Your wife apparently uses a Windows laptop and only uses Metro, so apparently people can do that. Then that's interesting. And I do hear from people like, I want this thing because it doesn't have that other stuff. That's a little crazy to me, but.
But I mean, the pricing is not going to be that drastically different during the Intel.
That's the thing. I actually think that is the future of the ARM stuff. I think that ARM can only come in under the Intel stuff for it to make sense. That ARM should be the entry level. It should be the 7-inch version. It perhaps could be the Xbox gaming type tablet where it's just a consumption device. I'm going to play games on this thing. I'm going to listen to music. I'm going to watch videos. It's for that. And that, the bigger screen devices, when you need to get work done, or you want to do the contraption stuff where it turns into a keyboard and it transforms into a different kind of machine.
You got one of the Intels.
I think so. We'll see. We'll see how it could evolve differently, but that's how I see it.
I mean, I think they're predicting $599 to start off on these new Intel-based tablets.
Yep.
And you really look at where the RT tablets are starting out, and it's not that far of a gap.
Surface RT should have been a lot cheaper than it is.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not the right price for this kind
honestly,
of device.
I'm the most excited about this thing because this is going to change the way that the PC is being done. I mean, this is going to be the PC that we want instead of these big giant chipsets that are sucking up all the power and the batteries.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to happen eventually. It's like I said though, it's just too bad that Windows 8 and Intel couldn't have been aligned on this. It would have been amazing for Windows 8 to ship with this. If they could have held off on Windows 8 for a year, which obviously they couldn't do for various reasons, and delivered this thing at the same time, or if Intel somehow could have sped up their development and however they would meet in the middle, but that would have been a much, much different launch, I think, than the one that we saw.
Did you see this Panasonic 20-inch 4K Windows 8 tablet?
Yeah.
Because that's what I want. I mean, I've decided.
It's also, by the way, a Lenovo 27-inch PC where you can detach the screen and carry it around like a.
Listen, I think
there's a picture of a woman carrying it, so her kids can play on the floor.
We talk about how ridiculous this is when you're taking a picture.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a 20-inch? Somebody's grandparent is coming over and is like, "Okay, hold on, stand. I got to take a picture with my tablet."
I will slap that thing down if I see it in public.
It's awful. Just awful devices. I mean, then that's what CES is. I mean, we get these devices, we get these crazy ideas that these companies are spending millions of dollars in God knows for what reason to develop a prototype of, and then they never come to anything. I mean, they just disappear after that.
It's crazy.
But a lot of the big names are missing. I mean, you don't get any Apple announcements from CES. Microsoft is out of CES. You're not getting anything from them anymore.
Oh, they are announcing stuff this week for whatever reason, but Google's not there either.
Google's not there either.
The three big companies that we sort of think about, not really huge.
Yeah.
At CES. That doesn't mean that CES is out of touch. I mean, obviously, many companies are involved in this thing, but yeah,
I don't know. It's something else. Another thing that they were saying how one of the big announcements from Intel is that voice will do touch.
Say again?
Voice will do to touch what touch did to the keyboard. They're big
Make
behind
it its little bitch.
I guess.
What does that mean?
I guess that was a quote out of Intel today.
I think the better way to say that would be that voice becomes a first class way of interacting with a computing device, just like touch did. That touch. It's not so much that touch replaces a keyboard, although on some devices obviously it will. But rather that any modern system should support all of this stuff. And so that you should be able to interact when it makes sense with a keyboard, a mouse, trackpad, touch, voice, and voice is going to be pretty big.
So we'll see what happens. I'm excited.
My son walked in the other night and he said to me, "I keep seeing this thing about Xbox Smart Glass on my on the 360. I assume you know what this is." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Is this?" He goes, "It looks pretty cool, but is it cool in real life?" And I said, "Let me show it to you." And so I showed him how today you can play a movie if it's compatible, and that it will show you the characters on the second device, and you can tap on them and learn more about those actors and all that kind of stuff. And you can use it as a remote control. I showed him how you can search on your phone or your tablet and find music and then play it to the console. And I showed him some of the stuff that works. I don't have any games at work yet, but I kind of talked to him about that. He thought this was the coolest thing he had ever heard of in his life.
I think it's really cool. It looks great.
And I think that is the interesting thing. Like when you talk about like voice control, we don't have a Kinect in our living room, but I was telling him that, if we did, we could do some basic voice control. I could say Xbox play, Xbox pause, Xbox, search, and you can do those things. And it's not hard to imagine how that is going to change our interaction with computers, like touch did.
Hellcat in our chat says, "Can you see people using voice on their computers or in an office? A bunch of people talking."
I see people walking around talking to their phones like they're on a walkie-talkie. Of course,
I'll tell you,
people love talking to themselves.
I talk to myself all day long. That's what I do as a career. But I have Google Now on this phone, and I use it all the time to get the score of the game. Whatever game I'm looking
of the game.
So I'll say
like the Celtics-Knicks game.
I'll say, when are the Knicks playing?
And it says New York still has a basketball team?
No, it just didn't understand. Let's try this. Hold on. When are the Knicks playing? Why it does Knicks, Nicks, like the Knicks, like a team full of Knicks.
Even Google now knows that the Knicks.
It's like the Greek national basketball team, the Knicks.
Like sissy-tastic, you know what I'm saying?
When are the Celtics playing?
The Celtics are playing the Suns tomorrow at 7:30 p.m.
There you go.
Huh.
It knows everything. It's the beauty of Google.
Google knows everything.
Google knows everything.
Yeah.
That's it, guys. I think we're done. We ran through everything, right, Paul? Was there anything you wanted to add?
Oh, let me look. Let's see if there's anything we missed.
I think we ran through everything.
Yeah, lots of TV stuff. I guess not.
Next week, we're going to dedicate the entire hour to the Ubuntu phone.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the possible future of this thing. And Paul's going to install Linux on every one of his computers. But not like the cool Linux. He's going to install like Red Hat.
I'm going to go Slackware. It's going to have to be like a floppy-based distribution.
Yeah, like Red Hat 6. Like let's go old a couple of years.
Yep.
You can check out Paul's website, winsupersite.com, for everything Paul Thurrott. Anything new on there today?
No, I don't really do anything, Andrew.
Anything new happen on that site?
I've been a little busy today. There's a lot of new stuff on there today.
winsupersite.com. I go there almost every day, so it's a great site. A lot of really good articles. Oh, firmware update.
Speaking of which, I meant to ask you.
Yes.
I know that we use Google Apps or whatever this is called, Google Docs, to do the show notes. Do you keep these things? Are they available?
I do, yeah. They're all available.
Okay. So I need to go back and find my Audible picks so I can add them to my posts, because I have the ones I did from Windows Weekly, but I didn't have the ones I did from this.
Oh, yeah, that other show you do.
Yeah.
The guy with the gray hair.
Yep.
Windows Weekly is live every Thursday at 2 p.m. East. You do it with Leah Laporte and Mary Jo Foley. By the way, guys, Leah did a great keynote at Blog World, New Media Expo last night. Anybody that's interested in podcasting or new media should definitely check it out. It was really, really good. He did about an hour 10.
Wow.
Really, really interesting stuff. The story was really good that he told. You can check it out. If you miss any portion of the show, of course, you could check it out on our website, gfknetwork.com. Or you could catch it on your favorite device. We're on the what does Microsoft call it again, Paul?
Call what?
The podcast, Microsoft Marketplace, Zune.
What did we came up with? It was like Microsoft Podcast
I'll tell you right. Let me look at the notes and I'll get it right. I swear, because Rob Greenlee is going to kick my ass if I say this wrong. It is called the Podcast on Windows Phone and Zune.
There you go.
You could catch our show there or on iTunes or pretty much any other podcasting application. Guys, I know we're still having some server issues, so if the download is not working properly, let me know. I'm sure I'm going to get about 500 emails tonight telling me it's not working, but keep trying it because we're going to be moving the server any day now. We're done with the server that we're on right now. And we welcome your emails. guysfromqueens@gmail.com. Send your emails and suggestions. And we'll see you all next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody.